Today we've had a long debate on this past reserves, how much to use, how much is enough. But let us not forget what a blessing it is to have the privilege of having such a debate, having past reserves to argue over. How did we get into such an enviable position? MPs will know that Singapore didn't start with much. In 1959, when the PAP government first took office, Dr. Goh Keng Swee was appointed Minister of Finance, and he immediately discovered that the treasury was bare. And he had to implement immediate austerity measures, including pay cuts for civil servants and ministers. It was only by the early 1980s, after 2 decades of nation building, that we had started to accumulate a nest egg of reserves. And at that time, our forefathers considered what to do, because they anticipated that the political pressure to spend these reserves would grow, and that if these hard-earned savings were not properly protected, they could be easily and unwisely spent. And once gone, is gone. And they felt that they had to do everything they could to guard against this. So in 1984, at the National Day rally, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew talked about how the reserves could be frittered away by a profligate government spending money that it had not itself earned within a single term. And he proposed a simple principle. If a government wants to spend, it must first raise the money. Whether by raising taxes, or by making shrewd investments, or some other direct, open, proper means, but not by drawing down on the past reserves that it had inherited. And to guard against a rogue government raiding the reserves, Mr. Lee mooted the idea of a president elected directly by the people, who would have the constitutional power and the moral authority to safeguard the reserves and be able to say no if the government wanted to spend it for an unwise purpose. And that was the concept of the second key. 4 years later, 1988, the PAP government published the white paper on the elected president scheme. Professor Jayakumar oversaw the drafting, and I helped him with it. We made the elected president proposal a central issue in the 1988 general election. After the election, in January 1991, we amended the Constitution to create the elected presidency. And Mr. Wee Kim Wee, who was then already the president, took on the new custodial powers and became the first president who wielded the second key. We designed a whole system to protect the reserves, wherever those reserves might have been. So the second key applies to the government, especially the Ministry of Finance, but also to what we call the fifth schedule entities. Fifth schedule because it's a fifth schedule attached at the back of the Constitution. And these fifth schedule entities are MAS, Temasek, GIC, CPF, JTC, HDB. Why did we do this? Why did we include these 6 entities? MAS, because those are our official foreign reserves. Temasek, those are our direct investments, the GLCs, government-linked companies. GIC, it doesn't have very much money of its own, but it is the manager of the government's money, of MOF's money. The CPF, which is Singaporean savings. Not really the government's money, but if you have a rogue government, this too will be at risk. And then JTC and HDB. Why? Because land. They own and manage land for industrial, for housing, for other uses. And land has value. And in Singapore, land is often very valuable. And therefore, we must protect our land and not allow our government to do anything with it that is a covert form of giveaway. And we discussed some possibilities today. That was how we started. We are here today because our forefathers had the prudence to build up the reserves and the vision to anticipate the political pressures to spend them, and the imagination to design the two-key scheme to protect the reserves for succeeding generations. That is what stewardship means.